You heard this sad news. Craig Shakespeare sadly passed away, aged 60. Let's speak to Geoff Peters about it. He's talkSPORT's Midlands correspondent. All right, Geoff.
Good evening, chaps. Yeah, very sad evening.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, terrible news. He's obviously sadly passed away today. Just talk me through him as a person, as a coach, as a player.
Well, I mean, as a player, Walsall was where he started out. He was a midfielder, very talented, played over 350 games there, had a brief spell at Sheffield Wednesday, went to West Brom and Grimsby, over 100 games at each of those, and became a bit of a fan favourite at all the clubs that he was at. And then sort of moving on to his managerial and coaching career, that's where things really kicked off for him. And joining up with Nigel Pearson when they took charge of obviously the club I support, Leicester. They were in Division 3. It was the lowest, the club had ever been, and it was really on its backside. And Nigel and Craig and Steve Walsh Senior, they all sort of came together and they lifted the club out of League One. They obviously went off to Hull. They came back. They won the championship with Leicester, got them into the Premier League. Looked dead and buried. Looked like they were going down. Incredible, great escape at the end of the season. And Nigel Pearson often seen as the sergeant major kind of figure, and Craig Shakespeare a bit more of the warmer arm round the shoulder. And I think, as you boys were talking about, often you have that as a manager and an assistant manager. They have those kind of different roles. And obviously Nigel Pearson left in that summer. Claudio Ranieri came in and they wanted some consistency. So Craig stayed on as assistant manager, and then just the season of all seasons, one of the greatest fairy tales in the history of sport, with the 5,000-1 miracle, Leicester winning the Premier League. And then when things didn't work out for Ranieri in the next season, he took charge. And one of the epic nights really for Leicester fans was a second leg in the Champions League against Sevilla. And Leicester were trailing from the first leg, and Craig had taken charge, and Leicester won, and they got through to the quarterfinals, which there haven't been many English managers certainly in recent times that have taken an English club into the quarterfinals of the Champions League. And little old Leicester as well. He helped Leicester stay up that season, got the job, didn't really work out on a permanent basis. And then he went off to work with Sam Allardyce, had a brief spell with England. Obviously, they were at Everton together as well. Dean Smith was somebody he played with at Walsall and was very close to. And then they worked together at Aston Villa and at Norwich. And then towards the end of last season, they came back in at Leicester again. And one way I would describe this is that he wasn't a man who clamoured for the limelight, but he was integral in so many successes at different football clubs. And I think more importantly, he was one of the kindest and most respected men in football.
You mentioned there, Geoff, about kindness and most respected. If you go back to when Leicester won the title in 2015-16, and he was Ranieri's number 2, the influence he would have had on the development of players like Riyad Mahrez, N'Golo Kante, Drinkwater, Jamie Vardy. So he's had a big say in some really top players' careers.
Yeah, and his career is intrinsically linked with Leicester, of course, a number of other clubs as well, as a player and as a coach. But certainly with Leicester, there's a very strong link. And just reading the tribute from Leicester tonight, if I can just read a bit of this: a man of immense talent, unwavering dedication and heartfelt passion for the beautiful game. Craig's passing will be mourned heavily by all who knew him, as well as the football community at large. Craig was not merely a staff member, but a cherished part of the Leicester City family. His warmth, kindness, and genuine interest in people endeared him to all. His loss will be felt deeply by the many friends he still has at the club and beyond. We'll never forget the immeasurable impact that Craig had on the club and its staff, and he leaves a legacy like few others. And though we mourn his loss, we are grateful to have shared such a special connection with a man whose passion and spirit will long resonate with all who had the pleasure of knowing him. That was in the very sweet, kind lovely, beautifully worded statement from Leicester. People like Jamie Vardy has said tonight on social media, I don't have the words right now, just gutted. Andy King was there from League One all the way to the Premier League. Not only a brilliant coach, but more importantly, an amazing person. Danny Simpson was there. Words can't even describe what this man did for me and my career at Leicester. I am so thankful to have had him in my life on and off the pitch. He was an unbelievable coach, but an even better human being. That from Danny Simpson. Kasper Schmeichel, obviously, has since moved on as well, and various other players that have worked with Craig, all pretty much saying the same things. An amazing coach and an incredible guy. And I think one of the most moving tributes really has come from Nigel Pearson, who worked with Craig so closely. It's difficult to put into words how I, and indeed everyone who came across or worked with Craig, will feel on hearing such devastating news. He is, without hesitation, one of the most wonderfully talented, emotionally understanding, calm, balanced, and outrageously funny people I've had the privilege of calling my friend. You are loved and admired by us all, and every time we think of you, a smile, smirk, chuckle, or memorable occasion will come to us. We truly are the lucky ones for having known Shaky. Safe journey to the next destination by my wonderful friend, and that's from Nigel Pearson.
Fantastic testimony. That's made me go a little bit sort of emotional and tingly as well, Geoff, to be fair. Just looking at his career, the only English manager to ever win his first four games in the Premier League. And in the days of we know about football and how ruthless it can be, but the two words that stand out for me are principles and integrity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just read all the quotes from players, managers, teammates, and various others. You know, even us old journalists who, you know, we're meant to be cynical and what have you about football and everything. And you read so many tributes from people who have come across Craig. Obviously, I interviewed him many times, as did so many other journalists. And you know, there are some people in football who you don't warm to, but Craig is one of those people who you could send a message to privately and have a good laugh with him. He took his work seriously, but I don't think he took every element of life too seriously, because he was just the kind of person who wanted to be kind and share a laugh wherever he could. And yes, he took the job full time and had that incredible night against Sevilla in the Champions League. For us Leicester fans, a real spine tingly goosebumps night. Won those first 4 matches, beat Liverpool, and you know they managed to keep Leicester up. Things had gone very poorly under Ranieri in that second season. And then what do you do in the summer? Do you bring in a new manager, or do you say, well, actually, you've done a pretty good job. You got us to the Champions League quarterfinals. You led us to 12th in the table. So we got the job on a permanent basis. But I think he was happier as a number two. As I said, he wasn't one of these people that we see sometimes with managers and maybe directors of football, or maybe owners, chairman. They want to be in the limelight, and he wasn't fussed about that. He wanted others to take the glory. And you look at people like obviously Nigel Pearson with what he said. Sam Allardyce clearly felt that he was an important member of his team, both at Everton and in that short spell with England. You saw Shakespeare, Craig and Nigel being reunited at Watford, and then Dean Smith at 3 different clubs. So he was a very respected person in football, and 60 years old. It's no age, and it's cancer, and it's horrible. And obviously our thoughts are with all his family and his nearest and dearest tonight.
Geoff, amazing tribute there, mate. I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for your time.
The Sports Bar with Jamie O'Hara and Jason Cundy. Monday to Thursday nights from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.